Good afternoon and welcome to Bern, the capital of Switzerland. My name is Veronica and I am a communicator, the name we give to cultural mediators here at the Museum für Kommunikation. As your host today, and on behalf of my team, Alexandra, Christian, Yuri, and Thomas, I would like to welcome you to this e-visit. The fact that we can be here with you today is only possible because of the great information and technology revolution we are living in. However, this same revolution has caused an exponential increase in new technology and therefore an increased volume in obsolete products. And so we are right in the topic, e-waste. As you know, e-waste is one of the fastest growing waste streams. 50 million tons of e-waste are produced worldwide in 1 year. We absolutely must address this worldwide problem. And we believe real dialogue is the key to beginning this change, just as you do now at the Internet Governance Forum. The Museum of Communication, with all its staff, is really interested in living, immediate and real communication. Since 2017, we do more than just collect and retell stories. What we want to do is actually talk and initiate a dialogue.
Hörst du mich?
But why don't we just begin this e-visit and show you? Thomas, my fellow communicator, is already waiting for you inside. Thomas, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Veronica. I can hear you. Thanks for the introduction. Behind me, you can see the entrance of our main exhibition, the heart of our museum. Let me just log in. Here at the museum, we take a look at all sorts of communication, whether it's sending a message through the pneumatic tube, finding a path through our maze in ensemble, reenacting our favorite movie scenes, or having a virtual conversation.
Hi, I'm Mike.
In our exhibition, it's impossible not to communicate. Communication has always connected people. But why do we communicate? And with whom? What does it take to really understand each other? Each year, 100,000 people find their way into our museum. A lot of families, children, and young people. And we, the communicators, personally take care of these guests. We initiate dialogues, we make suggestions, we talk to them, and if necessary, we show them how to use the equipment.
Wenn Kopf oben ist, dann erzähle ich euch eine Geschichte zum Objekt im Museum. Und wenn die Zahl oben ist, dürftet ihr euch ein Objekt aussuchen und mir eine Geschichte erzählen.
Okay, perfect.
Vor 80 Jahren ist das gefahren und das war sehr langsam.
Today, you are our visitors. Today, we are interested in initiating a sustainable dialogue with you on a topic that's part of our next exhibition. For that, I'd like to hand over the floor to my colleague, Alexandra. Alexandra, can you hear me?
Hi Thomas, yes, I can hear you.
Can you tell us what the exhibition is about?
It's an exhibition about the environmental crisis, and e-waste will be one of the topics.
Okay, so we'll hear more details on that exhibition later on. But for now, the title of this e-visit is Are We All E-Wasted? Alexandra, can you tell us what that means?
Let me try and answer this question with a question for you all in the audience in Kattowitz. How many of you have come to the conference without a mobile phone? Not many, right? Well, you're not alone. Over the last 20 years, mobile phones and vast access to the internet have made many things easier for us. Not at least communication. But this comes at a price. The resources we use to build these devices cause many environmental and social problems. And after we're done using the devices, they turn into e-waste. Of course, mobile phones are only one example for devices that eventually turn into e-waste. However, they are one of the most visible and omnipresent. You could say that we carry a part of the problem in our pocket every day. So Thomas, could you tell us some facts about this problem?
Here are the facts. Swiss people buy a new smartphone every 16 months. We're world champion in the production of e-waste. 100 years ago, in Switzerland, there were a bit more than 3 telephones for every 100 inhabitants. By 1980, that figure had already risen to 70. Today, there are now 126 mobile phones for every 100 Swiss inhabitants. Surveys suggest that today, at the age of 10, half the children have a smartphone. By the age of 12, almost everybody is online. Alexandra, can you imagine?
I only know one single person that doesn't own a mobile phone, my grandma. She says she's too old to waste her time with the internet. But she's always very happy to see family photos on my phone when I visit. Thomas, how many people are using a phone right now?
Worldwide, over 3.5 billion people use a smartphone today. There are over 20 cell phone manufacturers who are always bringing new models on the market. Today, over 1 billion smartphones are sold each year. Instead of increasing, life cycles of devices are shortening. Metals, such as lead, arsenic and mercury, are accumulating and contaminating our environment. Toxic e-waste often ends up on landfills in countries with inadequate infrastructure because they are not properly disposed of. Child labor, for example, in the gathering of raw materials, is still omnipresent today.
Thanks for the facts, Thomas. I just hear that Veronica has something to say on the subject.
I mean, I don't know how it is for you, but for me, the sheer number and facts are just so overwhelming that sometimes it just seems too abstract. That's why I like to hear personal stories from our visitors. Whenever I do a guided tour, for example, I always ask the school children to tell me how many mobile phones they have had until now. The most impressive answer came from a 13-year-old boy who said he was already on his mobile phone number 8. Isn't that impressive?
Yeah, I have to admit, this is my 8th mobile phone. And in the context of this, I have the first question for you. How many mobile phones have you owned until today? Think about it. I give you 1 minute. I wonder what happens with all the phones that are not being used anymore. I'm going to ask someone who certainly knows about one option. Yuri is the curator of our collection. He focuses on objects connected with information and communication technologies, ICT. Because we can only show a small part of all collected objects here in the exhibitions, the Museum of Communication has a depot. The depot is our large storage area with thousands of objects documenting the history of communication in Switzerland over the last 100 years. Yuri is one of 10 people who work with our collection.
Hello? Hello? Hi Alexandra.
Hey Yuri, question for you. How many different telephones do we have in the museum collection?
Here in the collection we have over 2,000 telephones. The oldest dates from the late 19th century and this one here is from the late 90s. There are analog and digital devices. There are rotary dials and push buttons and telephones of different materials and shapes. This one, for example, is a telephone from the late 19th century. It's probably made of local wood from near Bern and the microphone is imported. This is the classic Swiss telephone from the post-war period. It was used in some cases for over 50 years. And this one here is the first Swiss mobile phone. It was launched in 1978 and it was very expensive. We are talking about 10,000 Swiss francs.
And Yuri, how did all these phones end up in a museum collection?
The base is the collection of the former state-owned Swiss Postal, Telegraph and Telephone Agency. However, we receive weekly offers of objects from private individuals. It's therefore important to make a wise selection and to document the objects well.
A museum needs only one device of each model. And let's be honest, it is probably the most unusual way for a used device to end up in a museum collection. And Yuri, what other ways are there to address this problem?
You can keep the phone as long as possible. For example, let me tell you a story. This cell phone was used by a person from 1998 until the shutdown of the Swisscom GSM network in February 2021. One cell phone in 23 years. This phone still works perfectly, but the required mobile phone standard no longer exists in Switzerland. However, this phone is an exception. Supply and demand regulate this differently. Smartphones technology is more complex. Repairs of smartphones are often hardly worthwhile. The battery loses its performance or a new operating system is no longer compatible with the device, which compromises data security. And advertising promises a new happy experience with every new smartphone.
Thanks Yuri, and best regards to Schwarzenburg. There are many different reasons why people buy a new mobile phone. And that leads us to two more questions for you, dear audience. The first one is, why did you replace your old mobile with a new one? And now to the question that leads us back to the issue of e-waste. What did you do with your old phone after you were done using it? I handed my old phone in at an electronics collection point. If reuse no longer makes sense, phones can be recycled. Christian, the question is almost programmatic. Could you have prevented the waste? Yes or no? Well, Christian, could you?
Actually, as a part of the solution, when we talk about waste, here at the museum we try to create awareness. And with this little irritation, we create awareness. Could you have prevented this waste? Yes or no? When you never think about it, you're never gonna change your throwing away habits. In front of our lovely museum, a lot of people are eating lunch. Now let's have a look in these two bins. First in the no bin. I could not have prevented this waste. But come on, you're not serious, are you? You really need so much packaging for your sandwich? Aluminium could be brought to the recycling station. A lot of waste could have been avoided by just changing your buying habits. But I know it's not very easy when you're in a rush at lunchtime. I was very happy when I read that the EU forbids one-way coffee cups, like this one, by 2030. You can change habits very efficiently with the law too. Now let's have a look into the yes bin. I could have prevented that waste. Wow, that brings us back to our main topic, e-waste. If you don't use your electronic devices anymore, you have different kinds of possibilities. If it still works, you offer your mobile phone on an online marketplace. If you're not familiar with this kind of websites, there are companies that follow the reuse business model. They collect mobile phones to make them functional again. You see? Hello?
Hi Christian, it's Alexandra. And what can we do with phones that are beyond repair?
When mobile phones can no longer be made functional, it is essential to recycle them. In Switzerland, when you buy a mobile phone, the cost of disposal is mostly already included in the price. Sweco and Sense Recycling are non-profit systems for taking back old electronic and electrical equipment. Let me give you an example. This is the bill of the fridge I recently bought. On the bottom, you can see the fee of recycling. You only have to bring it to any electronic dealer in Switzerland. And they have to recycle it because you already paid for it. Sweco and Sense started their business in the 90s as a vision, and today they are internationally respected role models for take-back systems. We need exactly these kinds of success stories to make progress on e-waste. Alexandra will tell you now more about our next exhibition in the Museum of Communication. Alexandra, can you hear me?
Here, next year's exhibition will take place. What you see now is our current exhibition, Super. It revolves around digitalization, biotechnology, and self-optimization. A lot of the technology that we show here, for example, this e-girlfriend, will eventually turn into e-waste. The same can happen to the devices that we use to show content. This is an issue that we as a museum must recognize. The Museum of Communication is on a path to become more sustainable. And as we work to raise the public's awareness for sustainability, we will become more aware ourselves. All the material and devices used here will be reused and recycled for next year's exhibition. Environmental concerns will be as important as aesthetic concerns in the design of our next exhibition. Planetopia will be about environmental crises like climate change and the potential biodiversity collapse. The most important question we deal with is with what we as a society can do to stop them. We believe that talking and listening to one another is key to engage with environmental challenges ahead. We want to be a museum that actively participates in public discourse and that helps to stop the destruction of our planet. Preparations are already in full swing, and we already started our dialogue. Just like me and Veronica.
Thank you, Alexandra. Dear e-visitors, on behalf of my team, Alexandra, Christian, Yuri and Thomas, we'd like to thank you for your attention and wish you a successful conference. Now it's your turn. I invite you to turn to your neighbor and continue the conversation. The sustainable dialogue has begun. Are we all e-wasted?